After months of troop and tank buildups, of grim warnings of violence and vague assurances of peace, and of efforts at diplomacy in Washington, the halls of the United Nations and the capitals of Europe, Russia's invasion of Ukraine began early Thursday morning, with shelling and rocket attacks on several major cities including the capital, Kyiv. Explosions thundered in the dim light before dawn, minutes after President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia declared the start of a special military operation to demilitarize Ukraine, but not occupy the country. His announcement came as the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting, stunning ambassadors who had to deliver impromptu reactions to the rapidly changing events. Hours before the attacks began, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine made a dramatic televised plea to the people of Russia, saying he wanted to speak to them directly after Mr. Putin had rejected his phone call. "Listen to the voice of reason," Mr. Zelensky said. "The Ukrainian people want peace. They did not get it. Here's a look at the conflict, how it came to this point, and what happens next. What is the state of the fighting?" The Ukrainians have hoped for months that the forecasts of an invasion from Russia, a nation with which they share much history and culture, could not be true. But on Thursday they awoke to its dire reality. Long lines of cars moved out of Kyiv, many heading west in hopes of finding sanctuary in one of the few parts of the country not ringed with Russian forces. In other places people sought protection in subway stations and bomb shelters as air raid sirens sounded out. Russian missiles hit the cities of Dnipro and Kharkov. Explosions were reported in Kyiv, including at the capital's airport. Russia said its forces had disabled all of Ukraine's air defenses and air bases, while Ukraine's military said it had shot down 5 Russian planes and 1 helicopter. Maps, tracking the Russian invasion of Ukraine shelling, and missile strikes were reported across Ukraine as Russia launched an invasion from land and sea. In the east, Russian-backed separatists launched attacks in the breakaway regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, which they claim, but only partly control, Russian state media reported. Ukraine's government said Russian troops also attacked from Belarus to the north, where they had been deployed for military exercises, that the United States had said, were possible cover for building an invasion force to assault Kyiv. The troops hit border checkpoints with artillery, heavy equipment and small arms. In the south, Russian troops landed in Odessa on the Black Sea, according to Ukrainian officials. Why did Russia invade? Mr. Putin has long sought to assert some control over his neighbor, which was once part of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. He has expressed a sense of humiliation at the collapse of the Soviet Union and grievance at how the West filled the void. NATO, the military alliance that includes the United States and European powers, has added members in Central and Eastern Europe that had once been Soviet states, or part of its sphere of influence, including Hungary, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and the Czech Republic. In 2008, NATO said Ukraine and Georgia, both former Soviet states, could also join, without detailing when or how that would happen. For Mr. Putin, that crossed a red line. In 2014, after Ukraine's pro-Russian president was ousted in giant street protests, Mr. Putin moved to annex Crimea. He also supported separatist forces that control parts of the eastern regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, where they have waged a protracted fight with the Ukrainian military. Live updates, Russia attacks Ukraine. Ukraine's leadership has pursued a policy of closer ties with the West. The country has written into its constitution a goal of joining NATO. But that is unlikely to happen anytime soon. Some member nations, which must vote unanimously,